Hello there, and welcome to another edition of History in Your Own Backyard. My name is Chrissy Morgan, and today we are at the Strietmann Center in Cincinnati, Ohio, in the Over-the-Rhine district, right along Central Parkway. Today I am very honored to be speaking with Miss Peg Wyant, owner of the Strietmann Center. Thank you for sharing this beautiful view.
Great to have you here.
Thank you. So this building used to be called the Strietmann Biscuit Center, or Biscuit Company, rather. Please tell me a little bit about more.
Well, we call it the Strietmann Center now. It's an office building for the most part, with a rooftop terrace, which we're on, and an event center behind me. But it was started as the Strietmann Biscuit Company, and it was built over several decades, beginning in 1899. The western building was the first part built, and that was built in 1899. Within 10 years they had outgrown that, and so they built a second section. Another 5 years they built a third, and then another 10 years they built a fourth. Then they outgrew that, and at the time, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, you had a plot of land and you couldn't expand on the land because there was such density in this part of the world, in over the Rhine particularly. So they started building on top. So after the fifth floor, it was built as a 5-floor structure. They built the sixth floor, and then they built the seventh, and we're on the seventh.
And this is one of the taller buildings in the area from the older neighborhood.
It is, from over the Rhine, yes. There are very few buildings of 7 stories here.
Yeah, and
Music Hall, that's a little bit taller, but,
yeah.
but that's about the only one.
I guess so.
Yeah.
And when you say it's the biscuit company, what were they baking?
They started out baking cookies and crackers and delivering them, interestingly enough, in electric cars locally, which we think we do things new and we don't always reinvent things. One of our tenants now is a company called Electrata that's doing battery recharging stations. So we've sort of gone full circle, going back to the battery-operated cars or electric cars. But they made cookies and crackers. They did some very notable things. One of the things they did was invent Zesta crackers, which is still sold. This company was sold eventually to Keebler, then to Kellogg, and Zesta is still, you can find it on your grocery shelves. And but they were the first one to do a soda cracker of any sort, and it's wonderful to see how it survived all these years. The other thing that they invented, they were the first manufacturer to do chocolate chip cookies in the United States, to the best of my knowledge. And lastly, they were the initial company to manufacture in volume Girl Scout cookies. And Girl Scout cookies, no surprise, we don't think about this, but when they were first started, it was just a bake sale. The mothers made them in their ovens, and when the project outgrew Mom's ovens, they went to Strietmann to make them commercially. So Strietmann did a lot of very innovative things, including branding. I mean, Zesta Crackers, the whole brand name, that was unusual back in 100 plus years ago.
Absolutely. Do you know why a baking company would be in the middle of this cultural district?
Well, it wasn't a cultural, it was a manufacturing district at the time. I mean, it did have culture because it did have the music hall, but all the buildings along Central Parkway were basically manufacturing of some sort. And the canal, which was built, was to facilitate those manufacturing companies. So companies like Strietmann deliberately located near the canal.
Please tell me a little bit about this canal, because what I see when I look over the edge of the terrace is Central Parkway. It's a highway that kind of goes along through the middle of Cincinnati here.
Right.
So that was a canal at one time?
It was a canal, and it started in 1820. The city of Cincinnati had a population of 15,000 people, and they decided to take on a project to build the canal to connect the Ohio River with Lake Erie. And Lake Erie obviously was connected to the Great Lakes and to the Atlantic Ocean. So commerce could go from the Atlantic Ocean down through the lakes, down through Ohio, connect to the Mississippi, and all the way to New Orleans. And so it was a very ambitious project. It ended up costing over $100 million, and the population of the city was 15,000. Let me repeat that. 15,000 people decided to take on a project of over $100 million in today's dollars, which was astounding. And it launched a very rapid expansion of the city. The city went from 15,000 to 303,000, I think, by the next 100 years. I don't even know what kind of growth rate that is. but it was enormously successful in bringing industry of all sorts to the city and catapulting the population and all kinds of industry. And we were the 6th largest city in the United States by the Civil War, to give you some idea. And so that's the history.
Yeah, and so was there, I'd heard there might have been a subway at one time as well?
There was. When they closed the canal, the leaders of the city decided to build a subway in its place, and they went down and built, I don't know, for a few blocks, and then sadly they blinked. They decided that it was too expensive to go ahead and build the subway, which was designed to connect the whole city, just the inner city portion, maybe to Walnut Hills, not too far away. But undoubtedly that would have kept Cincinnati in a very prime place in the United States, but they blinked and didn't do it. And the population of Cincinnati did not grow for almost it grew for a while,
right,
but then declined from 400,000 at its peak to 300,000 where it sits today. And so that missed opportunity, one can say, was a real missed opportunity to keep Cincinnati on the top of the
Do you know why
world.
they stopped the canal?
I don't know. I mean, why they stopped the canal? Yes, because its time had passed and it was polluted and all kinds of things like that.
Oh, gotcha.
So, and there were other ways to
So it served its
transport.
purpose to bring people in, and
Well, the railroads had come, by the way. So the railroads became a big transportation.
And that was the major form instead of the
I think so.
the boating. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But Cincinnati had a great run, and during that, we did establish an incredible art and culture, world, where we had the symphony, and we built Union Terminal and the Museum Center, and the level of cultural excellence here is almost unmatched for a city of our size.
Visually, you can see this all around here, but then to know that even parking here, I'm seeing students with violin cases and everything,
Yep.
so that culture definitely still exists.
Definitely still exists.
What was this building after it was a bakery?
It was abandoned, like a lot of over the Rhine, and I don't know how many years it was abandoned. When we bought it, it was it had become a warehouse for furniture that was pretty useless. So there was no plumbing or electrical or anything in it. Well, no plumbing, maybe a little electrical, but it had been abandoned for a long time. And I came up, I saw it because we had done another office building in 2014, which leased right away. And so I thought, wow, we could do this again. So I sought this building out, went to a local broker that I had worked with, George Verkamp, and said, can you take me into the building, which he did. And we get to the top, and I look at this view, and I said, George, how many square feet is this building? And he said, 100,000. I said, what do they want? $1.5 million. I said, that's $15 a square foot, which is less than I pay for a good dress. Tell them I'll pay asking. And that's how I bought it. I mean, a lot of developers would do very fancy pro formas. I did none of that. I bought it based on the $15 a square foot comparison.
Sounds
I thought there's
like
got
a
to be
good deal.
value here.
Yes.
And it's been an enormously fun run.
Absolutely.
Enormously fun.
Absolutely. And what year was it that you purchased the building?
Oh, I put a contract out in 15 and bought it in 16. I had a year's worth of due diligence, so I did get to fill in some of those blanks that I didn't do based on the price of a good dress. And then it took 2 years to build out. And now it is almost, we have 5,000 of the 85,000 square feet vacant.
In use.
No, vacant.
Vacant.
We're
Okay.
almost totally rented, which is pretty unusual for an office building in today's time. Landlords are struggling,
Yes, they are.
but we are very fortunate. We have wonderful tenants, and we are in a place where young people want to be.
Absolutely.
They want to be in OTR. They want to see this kind of expansiveness. They want real materials. They like history. We have paid a lot of attention to the environment. You'll see over there, right? There's solar panels. We were the first.
I did notice the solar panels, and you don't see as many of them, but that's fantastic.
We are the only commercial building in the city of Cincinnati with solar panels. And we put them in, as I said, 5-6 years ago. And it's not an instant payout, but we wanted to walk the talk. We're also Gold LEED certified, which means that every plumbing decision you make, all the materials decisions are done with an eye to the environment. And so it's one of the things I like to think Grandin Properties, which is the family company that owns this, values. Is it's not just about making money.
Yeah,
it's about standing for something.
That's pretty admirable. What do you think we could do to help other people realize the impact this does to a neighborhood?
I don't know. Well, maybe we should publicize the fact that we're fully occupied, because those kind of statements ring with young people, and young people are the future. It just rings with them. And so I think that could make a difference.
Absolutely.
Bringing people up here, showing people.
Yeah.
But you got to walk the talk, or it won't happen.
Certainly, certainly. I love that it's painted blue on the outside.
Well, it's a gray blue. It's not a pure
right.
blue.
No. It does have a distinguished look. You had mentioned that the plans are to turn this Central Parkway into the Champs-Élysées.
Those are the plans. That's the vision.
Do you imagine other buildings similarly painted, or what? Can you have an idea of what you envision?
Well, this was meant to be a grand boulevard. When the canal was taken out, the park and planners designed a beautiful boulevard, and it just never happened. And so now we're at a automobile-dominated streetscape that has 6 lanes of driving. It's very difficult to cross. There's not decent bike lanes. There's not decent pedestrians. There's almost no vegetation, and all that will change, and hopefully it'll connect all the way down there from the convention center through Findlay Market in one linear mile. Just one linear mile, you'll have so many iconic buildings like Museum Center, which is a little bit to the left, Washington Park, Music Hall, Memorial Hall, the Cathedral, the Isaac Wise Jewish Temple, the Fire Engine Museum, Lloyd Library, the Jewish Cemetery. I mean, you can't go to another city, I don't think, and find as many iconic locations in a linear mile anywhere. So hopefully this
and
will,
the original buildings.
Yes, and so hopefully that this will make it come alive. And the original buildings, plus we shouldn't underestimate something like TQL Stadium, which is brings it up to the 20th century. I mean, when it was just original buildings, a lot of them were empty. And now we're bringing the life back there, and hopefully right across the street we'll have the new Coliseum, which will bring more sporting and other events. And this
real central district and hub for so much.
Exactly. And it has been really a lot of fun to be part of. There's no question about that.
I can feel your energy.
Yeah, I have a lot of energy, and I have a lot of energy toward things like this, because it'll make a long-term difference in the community.
Absolutely. Why do you think it's important to save buildings like this?
Oh, lots of reasons. Old buildings like this have stories to tell. I'll tell you one, that when this bakery was started in 1860, and the 2 boys who were the sons of the founder inherited it. And when they wanted to build here, because they'd outgrown the location on Court Street, they went to their mother and asked for a loan. Well, the widowed mother was getting 4% in bonds, and she said, "Gentlemen, I'm happy to loan you the money," but charged them 6%. So one of the stories is that early on, before you would think it's even possible.
This is the mother to the sons.
Yes, and women weren't even allowed to own property then.
Right.
But she did inherit it, and she charged the sons the 6% and financed this. So, but stories like that, or the Zesta Crackers story, or the fact that if you go in the top floors, the ceilings are as high as 20, 30 feet, and there's skylights, and the skylights were their form of air conditioning. If you tear down the building, who would ever know that? No. And so they baked the cookies on the top so they could open up the skylights and let the hot air out. And then as you went down to each floor, the next floor was the packaging, and the next floor was the icing, and the next floor was the final packaging, and where they put them in the containers. And we've preserved all that, which people wouldn't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And things like the electric cars. I mean, who would think that we had electric cars in the early 1900s delivering?
Right, the idea was already there. It just wasn't facilitated.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
And it's good for historic preservation. It's good for the environment. And I think, as I said, it's much more fun. I mean, anybody can build a brick and steel tower. I mean, not anybody, but if you build a square building, it's a square building, and there are magnificent new buildings. Don't get me wrong, and that's one of them, TQL Stadium. But it is really rewarding to bring back to life something that's gone away and is at risk.
Preserve what made the city, your roots,
and you don't contribute to the landfill either.
Yes.
That's the other thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I love it. I love it. It's not the best way to make money.
But I think if we maybe think more about the enjoyment of how we create, and I noticed that there's a quote about creativity. Do you mind sharing what that says inside the building?
Oh, this is a place where creativity can breathe.
This is a place where creativity can breathe.
And I think that's right. I think there's been creativity here. We are very fortunate. The tenants we have are all of the most creative types. We have a couple of the world's global creative, enterprises, and we have 3 or 4 startup companies that are top of the mark in terms of bringing new ways of thinking and doing things to the world. And that's really fun to be around that too.
Absolutely. Keeps the energy.
Yeah, keeps the energy.
Thank
I love
you
it
so much, Peg.
You're quite welcome.
I think leaving on the note that this is the place where creativity can breathe, as I'm watching the flag blowing in the distance and this lovely breeze on the terrace of the Strietmann Center. Thank you so much, Peg Wyant. Again, this is History in Your Own Backyard. We're at the Strietmann Center in the Over the Rhine district in Cincinnati, Ohio, right along Central Parkway. Remember, travel slowly and stop often.